Yo, what's up? Sitting here in the truck, man. It's one of them days. Okay, so this good man posted a video, and then he had some people in the comments, and he's talking about some stuff because the feast dates are in the Old Testament. They were observed by the Hebrews and the people that wanted to hang out with the Hebrews. Like when they left in Exodus, we see a large people group left with, the whole "Let My People Go" movement and all the amazing things of that time. Wow, could you imagine following a pillar of fire through the night and a pillar of smoke through the day? Wouldn't that be neat? I mean, that would be super. That would be supernatural, right? So, that's very incredible. And then for God to choose to bring the non-Hebrews also that were willing to follow His way, that's not to be overlooked. That is a significant standard. And later we see that the earth opened up and swallowed a bunch of them because they were not following the appropriate way to conduct themselves, even after seeing all that. So, I guess they gathered up all the gold and stuff, made a cow, started worshiping the cow, like they had like a holy cow. And is that where that phrase come from? Holy cow? Or is that like making fun of people that are not down with the biblical accurate way of living? Is Bart Simpson a prophet? Don't have a cow, man. Anyway, probably not. That's just a little joke that actually sticks. Simpsons always predicted stuff, but they never bring up the good stuff. Okay, so there was a question about, how do I do stuff or whatever, and I've even made a video before where you just do a Google search. But what I have found is that this AI and stuff will pop up. Okay, so it's for me, I'll Google something, and when I look at it, I'm like, okay, this is the situation, cool, and then I'll see some commentary and stuff, and I'll look at that or whatever, but I'll actually know something, and then I try that to see what it'll say. So like I'm testing it out to see the accuracy and to see the just to get a better picture of, can I rely on this? And it is an extreme fail. It is an extreme fail. I don't know how many times there has been a direct, like for example, if you Google when at the end times, it's in the Bible where, I've read it, and it says something about He shuts up the four winds at the four quarters of the earth. And I remember, because I was reading, I was like, what's the sign of the end or whatever? And I got real deep into it, and wars, rumors of wars, and all this kind of New Testament stuff and everything like that and everything. But there's some Old Testament stuff too that the New Testament is looking back towards. So you can get into Daniel, and then you can get into like some Ezekiel, and you start figuring out, like how does some guy that walked around on the earth before Jesus by hundreds of years describe thermonuclear war? Okay, and like how the missile actually detonates. Yeah, it's a missile, yeah, it's flying, but like, how does he have the measurements for this missile? And then like the lead injected into the lead, and then like the uranium 235 degrades into lead. So, and then like the shielding of a bomber, and then like that's dropping this thing, and it has to have the shielding and stuff. Like, how am I in 2004, 2008-ish, laying in a jail cell reading this, thinking to myself, that's a bomber that's going to drop a cauldron of lead. And then somebody else later pointed out, I didn't find this out for myself. I actually heard about this, and then I looked into it from an amazing brother that has linguistics that elude me. And he pointed it out, and then with checking to see, hey, is this a real deal? So like the word see could be like, well, I see a cat, and then it's like, I see what you're saying, so I understand. And then like, he sailed the 7 seas. That's talking about the ocean to whatever degree. But it's all the word see, and twice it's spelled the same, once it's spelled different, and then in different languages. Like if somebody was reading this hundreds of years later and they're trying to translate, it's easy to lose something in the translation, and then even later complications with our modern times of copyright laws. So it's important to be able to develop a pattern of what I call the gist. You know what I mean? So I'll be looking at this thing. I'm like, what's it saying? And it happened for me because I was reading King James, and I was very distraught due to tragedy. And I'm trying to read it, and I'm trying to read it, and I'm trying to read it. I'm like, what does this say? What does this say? And I'm getting frustrated and everything else like that. And then somebody offered me a different translation. It was the New International Reader's Version. And it said free on the inside. It had a chain on the wrist. The guy's breaking his chains. So it's like the prison version, right? It's like, thou shalt not shank thy neighbor. I'm just kidding. They didn't say that, but it was so basic that for the first decade I talked about this version of the Bible. I told people, and I'm around a rough crowd at this point in my life, so forgive me. At this point in my life, I'm actually embarrassed, but I'm going to say it anyway. But I said it was translated into dumbass because my dumbass understood what it was saying, right? It was just plain English is what it was. And later on, and I read the entire thing, the New Testament and the Old Testament, because it was the New International Reader's Version. Okay, and then later, people would make fun of the New International Version, and they would call it the NIV, the Nearly Inspired Version. But these were theologians that had died upon the meat of Christianese via Old English from the 1611 that still had the Apocrypha and all this kind. It's like the average 20-year-old person doesn't understand what I just said. So I might as well just be like, well, bleep blop blip 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 blip, 1,432,675,000.6 years ago, a Tyrannosaurus was roaming on the Permian Basin. You know what I mean? It's like, bro, just say a long time ago there was a dinosaur walking in Texas. You know what I mean? Like, I understand that. A dinosaur walked in Texas. There's these footprints right there. There's human footprints right there too. Interesting. Very interesting. What's that place called? Glen Rose, Texas. And I'm down there. We actually went over there. Different train of thought. Me and my wife and Dennis go down there, and they had a play with a Jesus deal going on. And real nice, just the sweetest people, best hospitality ever. And it's a Jesus thing, so everybody's minding their manners, so they're not like, it's not like a rodeo with all the beer drinking and hoorahing. And we went down there to see them footprints and everything, and we're at that creek and we're looking at it and everything. And I looked at this, I said, if mankind walked with dinosaurs and walked through this mud, like you can see where the dinosaur's at, then you can see the footprints side by side, and then you can see the footprints of a man walking next to the dinosaur. I'm like, well, if anybody's going to ride a dinosaur, it's some guy in Texas. You know what I mean? Like, Yeah, because there's a lot of horsemanship. Anyway, that was a joke, and we laughed, and we had a great day that day. And yeah, it was good times, good times. Glen Rose, Texas, check that out. Where the band walked with the dinosaur. I suspect he wrote it because, like, you know, I know how to look at tracks. Anyway, back to the main point of this. If I'm trying to find something in the Bible, where does the Bible say such and such, right? Okay, when the Google device tells you this, that is to search the address only. It's like that's the Google Maps. Just get that concept. Like, I'm going to say, where does it say this? That the translation that's appropriate for my age. Like, say I've been reading this thing for 10 years. Say I've been reading this thing for 50 years, whatever. You know, I might have the super duper edition, and I might have the New International Reader's Version. I might have the very basic. And I recommend that you have one of each in your house. I personally have 11 translations of the Bible specifically for I was like, after I figured that out, like, when I found what I understood, I said to myself, I recognized that I spent all my time trying to figure out what it was saying instead of hearing what it said. So if I'm like, you know, 14,253,782.56 million years ago, a Tyrannosaurus walked in the Permian Basin, I'm still trying to figure it out. You know, there's a big number, there's a lot of syllables, so it takes more to digest, it takes more to comprehend and get the conveyance of thought. But somebody that's well versed, they need that so that they can feel safe in that they're not being tricked, right? So it's an intellectual thing. It's an age and stage is what I call it. That's an easy way of saying it. Okay, then you got the, you know, there was a dinosaur walking in Texas. Okay, so I don't have, okay, cool. Dinosaur in Texas, long time ago, check. I'm ready to catch your drift. I have a clear picture in my head of this dinosaur walking in Texas. Long time ago. When did it happen? Long time ago. Do I need the particulars of this? Maybe for a different day, but right now today, it's like, okay, got it. I'm new. Okay, got it. And now I can look at the context before and after, and I can get the gist of what somebody's saying. Because, like, think about this. If I'm going to write a letter, say I'm overseas for whatever reason, and the only way to get word back to my family about what's going on is to write them a letter, and I got 3 pieces of paper, because that's all that'll work with the one envelope and the one stamp that I have to get her done, right? So I'm gonna write this in a certain way to convey what's going on to my people, and you know, I may or may not include the stuff that is trivial, and then the stuff that's really important, like I'm alive, I love you, I'll be back soon, this is what I'm here doing. These are major things. I'm going to be very clear about that. So if somebody in my family gets this deal and they're reading it, and it's right now, I'm today years old, and so are they, and I'm like, yeah, this is a beautiful town and everything else like that, but they got this one old house on the corner. I don't even know why it's there. It's just an eyesore, really. And but the food's good. We're eating good. We're safe. The gospel's being preached. We're building the orphanage. We've dug the water well. I'm safe. Everything's cool. I love you so much. I miss you. Tell Mom I said hi. You know, I'm writing a letter, right? So 200 years from now, you know what I mean? Like, I said that to my sister. My sister looks at that and she says, eyesore. Oh, this is a dilapidated house. It's ugly. Like the whole town's beautiful, but this is an eyesore. Now, you fast forward 3,000 years. An archaeologist has found this, and they don't speak English, but they kind of translate it. It's like, well, we can tell he's overseas, and he sees a house, but we don't know what this means about this eyesore. So maybe he had trouble seeing. But it's them that have trouble seeing, because they don't comprehend what seeing is in the proper context. So, with this whole group of people, okay, let's go back to translations. Okay, so here's the King James Bible, here's the New International Reader's Version. So like the New International Reader's Version is a modern English toned down for simplicity version of the Bible. The Reader's Edition this is the first time you're trying to read the entire Bible. So you're going to read through this whole thing and catch a certain drift, and then like you're going to get a more detailed book. Like your first biology book is not the one that the surgeon is studying out of. There's different age and stage. You've been at it a while. You need these real specific things to be a good surgeon. So, ninth grade biology is not the same as Ivy League college. And neither are the textbooks, right? Okay. And then you got books like Revelation, right? So these are conveyed in a way that it's you're speaking above the crowd. And then they had these codes where you would say stuff and you could use numbers to decipher the code, because they're behind enemy lines. They're under duress. Okay, so we see in World War II how they would use various ciphers, is what they call it. So like say, and then they do it at the prisons still to this day. A lot of the southern prisons use the Aztec languages right now to this day, and they'll communicate back and forth, and they'll say stuff in Spanish and English that have a secondary meaning in the Aztec. You know what I mean? So it's like as I'm telling you this, there's somebody communicating in a different way that is code. You know what I mean? So one of the things we see is like the beast system. That's a reference to a system of governance. So the mark of the beast is like, the mark of the government. Like what is that? You know what I mean? And that's one person's opinion. I could have that wrong. I have no need to be an authority in any of this, because I read the book and I found out that I'm not God. Okay, so when I give commentary, especially on the book of Revelation, it plainly says whoever reads the book of Revelation, everybody, is doing a good thing. And then somebody that's changing it or whatever, you probably ought not do that. From what I get out of it, you're in danger. So for me, when I'm reading certain books, and then because it's at the end of the canon, a lot of people apply that to the entire Bible, which is wise in my opinion, because why would you change any of the Bible and think that God's not going to paddle you over that deal? I mean, like, as you read the Bible, you'll find out, it's like, do right or else. And else is, you don't want else. Okay, so there's this whole group of people, and they might be, like I think the Schofield people were like 1,500 or whatever. And this dude write this stuff down, and he put these commentaries at the bottom, and the philosophies of his time, it's previous, is on his head, so he's writing things down in a certain way, so his commentary comes across. They jump to conclusions and they connect dots that today I would have to say I can see where they're coming from and why they said it, and then I'd be like, well, I mean, I don't get that when I just read it myself. So I recommend going to the ancients as far back as you can for your knowledge, because the closer to the source, the more pure it's going to be, right? But then it takes this whole team of translators. These people are a lot smarter than I am. Some of them might have ill intentions. They're human. Some of them might just make a mistake. They're human. Some of them might be inspired by God to get it exactly right. I mean, they are translating the Bible, so, I mean, if I give them the benefit of the doubt and just assume they're good dudes trying to do the best they can, you know, making their way the only way they know how, they're doing the best they can, you know. But they're scholarly. I'm assuming they probably know more than me, and there's a few of them, so hey, there you go. And then there's an entire team like that for the King James. But King James was a politician, so I mean that's suspect right there. You know what I mean? Because, you know, in my estimation of people in governance, the way you can tell they're lying is because their mouth is moving. Is a parable, you know? Kind of like eyesore, you know what I mean? Like politicians lie. Anyways, so if there's a team here, team here, team here, team here, I got 11 teams of people that wrote this Bible, and I'm buying these Bibles for $20. Okay, so I got like $240. We'll say $300 tied up in these Bibles, right? And I have 11 teams of scholars that will give me their opinion if I read it. This seems like an incredible value. This seems like an incredible value. Okay? But wait, there's more. So when I read this, and it's like, you know, God forgives us the way we forgive others. And I read it 11 times. I just read it 11 times. Way less chance of forgetting. Okay? Like, I will forget, but it's written down in my innards because I just read it 11 times. So when I read something, I retain a certain amount, and then when I read it out loud, like if I hear it, I retain a certain amount. Then if I read it out loud and I hear myself say it, I combine those two and bring that up another level in retention. And then the more that I engage my non-predominant hand in the process, the more I use the opposite side of my brain and actually write it into my subconscious. So now, like, it says write it down on the tablet of your heart. And I take that as your emotional side. You know what I mean? So like when I'm reading in there, you know, and you know, they're at the valley. There's armies on both sides. Goliath is talking all crazy, and David's like, "I got this," and he's walking down there to get 5 smooth stones. Like, I'm visualizing this, and I'm saying this stuff out loud, and I read it 11 times, and I'll notice a slight difference in the way they go about saying it. So this team said it like this one like this. 11 teams brought to me at $20 a piece. Fantastic. Absolutely the best deal ever. I got $300 tied up into 11 translations of the Bible, and now I read this thing, and it's like, you know, he picked up 5 smooth stones. This other one didn't even say nothing about a creek. 6 of them said he walked down to the creek and got 5 smooth stones. One of them just said he grabbed 5 stones. Didn't even say they were smooth. Okay, so as I read this 11 times, I got a real vivid, clear picture of what these translators say it said. Okay, so I could be off in nuance, but I've increased my probability of retention and clarity on the subject. And when you focus and narrow down and seek your source, and you have confidence in your source and stuff like that, that's real good. Like, I have a reason to believe the Bible because this team translated it. And this team over here from 1884 said verbatim what this team over here said in, 400. And this one that was just, in modern English, it's like this, and then here's the 1611, and then here's the New International Reader's Version that's broke down into simple terms that even me, a novice, let's say I don't even know what novice means, and that me, a beginner, just like some dude from the end of the last dirt road locked in a jail cell over drinking too much beer, some jackass just reads it and gets it instantly. Okay, that's what that means. Okay, Dinosaur, Texas. Cool. So I'll read this thing 11 times. That's repetition. So you got your reps and sets, right? I want big muscles. I pick up big weights. I want strength. I pick up the weight a lot of times. So if I get the big weight and move the muscle that I want to be bigger, it'll get bigger. And then if I do that a lot of times, I will be very strong. So if I pick up 30 pounds and curl it 1,000 times in a row, I will have strength without getting any bigger. But if I want to get bigger, maybe I'll put 50 pounds on and just pick it up until my arm won't move. You know what I mean? And then maybe I'll put 100 pounds on there and I can't even pick it up. So I use both hands to pick it up and start at the top and then just release it down. I just try to not drop it fast. And that's a negative way to work your muscle, right? So that's very cool and good knowledge. All right, so say you can't do a pull-up, right? So you get over there, and you got something to stand on or whatever like that, and you just hang on to it, and then you just bend your knees and try to not fall down fast. You repeat this for 3 weeks, you get more gains off of that. It'll surprise you the gains you get from that. Anyways, 11. So you get your reps and sets. You got your multiple people. So all these multiple groups are saying the same thing. So it's kind of like reinforcing that they probably got it right. And then some of them don't get it right. Okay? And then you should expect that. We're human. And then Jesus said, unless your righteousness is greater than that of the scribes, you ain't gonna make it. Whoa, man. So the guy that wrote the book was flawed, right? And but how were they flawed? I'm flawed. My dad's flawed. My mom's flawed. My sister's flawed. But I love them. And I can recognize when they're getting it right, when they're getting it wrong. And, maybe they're getting something wrong that I think is right. So I got to think to myself, oh, wow, I'm not perfect either. So as I'm reading these things, I'm like, okay, let me assume this book is correct because 9 out of 11 said the same thing. So these two over here are suspect, but it said that all these people came to the same conclusion. Let's assume this is correct and run it through the test. Does it make sense? Does this add up? If I do this, what would the outcome be? And it says, do this, you'll get that. If you choose A plus B, you will get C. Okay, so I'm looking at A, I'm looking at B, and I think to myself, well, if I had those two, if I had wisdom and understanding, that could bring riches and a good wife. Okay, so it says that. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I probably would be able to acquire those things. These are things I want. Let's give this a shot. Makes sense. Says, 9 out of 11 times. Hey, let's go for it, right? And it's just the example. I don't know that it says that or not, but actually I think it does. Not in those particulars, but in the gist. And then it's like, live by the sword, die by the sword. Like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be sword fighting. If I'm sword fighting on a regular basis, eventually I'm going to lose. And to lose a fight involving swords sounds like getting my stabbed, cut, whatever. I'm the kind of guy that's going to fight until I can't fight no more. So if I can't fight no more, that's the loss. Therefore, I'm dead. So I was making a living with a sword, and I died by a sword. Yeah, that adds up. Okay, so that stands the test of my head. Okay, and then it'll say crazy stuff. In the ignorant. Ignorant means don't know, by the way. Stupid is I know better, but I just keep doing it anyway. And then there's addiction. Okay, so you can look ignorant, but actually no, so that's stupid. But if you're addicted, then like you're stupid is understandable because you're addicted to it. You can't, you want to get rid of it, but you're caught up, which is understandable. You know what I mean? And it does just because I can understand why you can't quit smoking cigarettes doesn't give me or you any benefit to say, well, it's okay, go ahead and smoke. Well, it's hard to quit smoking, so go ahead, here's a carton of cigarettes, bro. That would be me enabling a problem and all certain kind of stuff like that. But like, say you smoke cigarettes and you're broke and everything else like that. But, your car just broke down, you lost your job, your house burnt, and your wife and kids were in the house when it burned. And you're like, hey man, you got a cigarette? I'm like, shit, here's a carton, bro. You know what I mean? And that gets us into discernment and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I see this guy, this really happened one time. There was I talked with a guy, it was amazing. I talked to a guy when I was walking back from QT over in West Siloam. And, not West Siloam, West Tulsa. What they call that over there? Anyway, it was at the QT. I think it's 129th East Avenue. No, that's the other side. That's over by Catoosa. Anyway, I was definitely at a QT. This guy comes up to me and he just looks raggedy. And he said, hey man, I ain't gonna lie, dude. I just want somebody to get some beer. It's, hot, and then at night it's cold, and I've been laying on this concrete, and it hurts, man. And I'm like, bro, come on, man, let's go in here, dude. I bought this dude a case of beer. You know what I mean? I'm like, he's gonna go over here and go off in these bushes or whatever, and sleep on the concrete and been doing it and everything like that or whatever. And he was honest, man. I had compassion on the guy. And yeah, he's an alcoholic and he's ruined his life, and I'm kind of enabled it and everything else like that. But in that moment, it was appropriate, I thought. It's just like compassion, right? And anyway, so you'll see these things. And as you find the address via Google, go to the book. Read the word and let the word be your teacher. And then you're interacting with God. Like in my witnesses, I call it the 5-minute ministry. What I'm actually doing is I'll tell jokes. And how the person reacts to the joke is I know whether or not I can talk to them, right? And because it's a random person at the gas station, right? So I'm like, they're making coffee, I'm making coffee. So it's not weird. There's a reason for us to be there. That's key. You know what I mean? You can't catch a duck if you're just standing in the water waiting for one to land. But if you cut out a pumpkin and you stick it on your head, you go out there about waist deep and you sit down, the ducks think that you're a pumpkin. And you wait for the duck to get close enough and you just reach up and grab you a duck, now you got dinner. That's how some of the Indians used to fish where I come from, right? That's where the joke about Pumpkinhead come from. I did Halloween nonsense and all that stuff. But yeah, that's what you do. Like, you know, eat the pumpkin, have dinner, use it for camouflage the next day to catch a duck. So I'm at the coffee pot. They're at the coffee pot. It's not weird. They're waiting for this thing to make coffee, and I'm like, you know what Jesus' blood type is? B positive. And the way they respond with laughter or anger or whatever lets me know a lot about this individual. So in that moment, I can bring up another joke or whatever else like that, or I can make comment. Usually if I tell them they're intelligent to some degree, like, well, you know, obviously you're smart enough and you read the Bible some because you understand, you know, Jesus' blood saves us. Now I'm talking to this guy about salvation, and it's a flow, right? Some people call it game where they're trying to get spouse. Okay, like I have no game. What is the beeping? This truck beeps, and I have no idea why. It's been doing it for 2 months. You hear the beeping? I don't know what that is. Anyway, sorry about the beeping. Kind of bothers me too. Anyway, oh, I missed my stopwatch. It is. Yeah, stopwatch for the 45 minutes doing 75 hard. I don't carry the phones, so I have to carry the stopwatch when I'm doing my workouts. So the goal is to encourage them to read the Bible for themselves. And so you talk to them, kind of joke around, and then say, hey, this is what reading the Bible did for me, yada, yada, this and that. And they're like, hey, I never thought of that, or whatever, you know what I mean? That's a win. That's a win. And then other times, there's a lot of things that happen. The point of this is, right now, I want you to know that when I Google search, where does the Bible say XYZ, all this stuff will pop up. And about 70% of the time, it's on point. And then I started reading the commentaries about it, and it's about 25% accuracy, I would have to say. It takes stuff out of context, because I got that little AI thing where it'll kind of try to talk about it or whatever. It's like, well, you know, it's great where it's like, you know, most people are saying that, you know, tomato pie is a good place to get pizza. For stuff like that, I guess, you know what I mean? That's it's an indicator, but still, like, you know, it's crowdsourced information, so it's suspect, right? But then I'm trying to get the gospel truth about salvation. I'm not going to let some Google device tell me, and then I'm not going to get robbed of the interaction with the book. So when I get the book out and I'm holding it and I'm touching the pages and I can feel it, and then I'm reading the words I'm taking in with my eye, and then I'm reading it out loud to myself. I get stuck. I'm in my favorite that's stage appropriate for my intellect. So I'm reading it, and then I'm like, okay, this seems deeper. Read it. Go through all 11, and then now I have a clear. By the time I've read the 11 and I pick up my original, you know what I'm saying? I've got 45 minutes to an hour and a half invested into a deep searching for God experience. You can't beat that. You can't beat that. And as I'm relating to the book is relating to me. I'm having conversations with scholars from the days of yore all the way up to, dummy translation, thou shalt not shake thy neighbor. I always say that because it's like it's breaking the chains of the friend. It does not say that, but it does use some of the terminology. Sorry, I gotta put my hand down, man. I've been working out this. According to that thing, my arm has 13.7 pounds of muscle. Yeah, I just found that out. Like you settle this thing and you hold it. You know what I mean? They got a thing up here. I don't get to go to first form to get my stuff. So I don't get the good stuff. I gotta get the generic Mexican version. So they got a place up here. And when you go in there and get your powder and your stuff, you stand on that thing and you hold it. You take your shoes off and everything. It'll tell you how fat you are. I don't know how accurate it is, but yeah. Anyway, so I'm not just holding up this phone. I'm holding up, 13 pounds of muscle according to this deal. And then on another train of thought, somebody was telling me when you're on your cut phase or whatever, you got to make sure that you don't lose muscle and everything. So I got this whey protein stuff or whatever like that, and I started, mixing it with milk, and I'm like, I think calf starter works better on the one hand, and on the other hand, I think the reason why everybody else is like counting all their protein and stuff and what they eat, and I've been doing that for a long time, but when I was growing up, milk was a luxury. So I've been drinking like a half a gallon of milk on a regular basis. Like, I probably drink a half a gallon of milk every day for, like, it used to help my heartburn and stuff like that because I'd be working on the roof and I'd eat and drink and everything. And the first wife down in Florida, she tracked it, and one day she told me, she said, you realize you're between what you had at breakfast, lunch, and what we're eating right now, you ate 7,800 calories. And I was like, is that a lot? I had no idea, I'm like, is that a lot? And I would fluctuate from about 198 on Friday after getting off work, and I'd drink a few beers by the time I made it home. Get on the scale, 198. Sunday I would go to work and I would be 220. And I just about every Friday, it was so weird because she was like, she tracked me for probably 6 months. Every Friday was writing that shit down and everything. And she's like, look at this one day. She's like, you realize you're 198 pounds every Friday? And I was like, no. And there again, at the time, no clue that meant something. And, anyway. This was supposed to be a 7-minute video about how to use Google to find the address, but don't trust the Google. Trust the Bible instead and get multiple translations, because that's your relationship. I left a thing for somebody. I should have just read this. Maybe I'll do a short. I'm just going to read this. And it says Google searches for finding the address, book, chapter, verse. However, don't think it's the only location, and beware of the commentary of the Google AIs and the internet. You want to read the book in book form that doesn't change and get personally settled via read the word and let the word be your teacher. This procedure exercises the individual to Bible connection, ushered in Holy Spirit guidance at your specific level and speed. I found that Dad is the best teacher. I genuinely get more questions as answers come. This begins a wonderful journey and relating with the Bible. So as I'm relating with the Bible, that's the relationship with God. And as I'm settled, this is a big deal. As I'm settled and I've centered my chi or whatever you call it, I'm like, well, what does that mean? I'm settled, I'm focused on God, and I'm like, I got these books out, and I'm like, I'm in the zone, and I'm studying this, that God forgives us the way we forgive others. Okay, so like, and then I'm reading another spot, and there's a parable Jesus gives, and there's two dudes. One's forgiven a little bit, one's forgiven a lot. This one guy gets out, and then somebody owes him some money. It's next to nothing. And the guy starts choking him. He's like, pay me my money or whatever like that. And then the king finds out, and he's like, well, you had all this debt forgiven. Why are you holding this against this old boy? You know, and he's like, throws him in prison or whatever. And so there was three examples of, you know, the way I treat other people directly affects how I get treated. Right? And then I'm supposed to grow into Christ likeness, and yet I am not God. And then when I see these rules and boundaries set in my home, if I go about that in a kind and gentle manner, like currently I got this group chat thing going on for Unit T where I live. I call my property Unit T because my wife is Tracy, and I call her my sweet tea because every Southern boy loves sweet tea, right? Anyway, and she's real good, real good. And so I named it. When I went there, it was her and her mom, and I called it Estrogen Acres because everything would look like girls. How do you make this stop? The whole place was like super girly, you know what I mean? And you know, I mean, like you walk in the room and there's just like pillows everywhere and like some ancient style, you know, it's like a couch that's got the legs that come out and they kind of, you know, and it's real crafty, and there's like a little board that looks like lace or something, and then like the windows are all, you know, girly. And then you walk in the other room and it's just like, you know, there's like, you go to the bathroom, there's seashells glued together to the side of a picture, and it's like, you know, enjoy your poo. And I didn't say that. They didn't say that. You know what I'm talking about? It's girly, you know what I mean? And come to find out, my wife is like the thrift queen, which is great if you're trying to live in an expensive United States of America. It's expensive everywhere, y'all. It ain't just you. It's like that everywhere. I drive the truck, trust me. It's not just you. It's not like your location is abnormally expensive. Like, they're charging $2,000 to have a roof over your head everywhere, right? And so I called it Estrogen Acres. And I figured, well, we better come up with something a little better than that. So we called it Unit T now, you know, anyway. So I got there's two families there on the property, and started a group chat and everything else like that. And I'm trying to, you know, I'll get on there. I'm like, it's your captain speaking. We should be cruising at 5,000 feet. You know, I'm not expecting any turbulence, blah, blah, blah. You know, at the beginning of the 6-month lease or whatever. Like, hey, it should go good for 6 months. Not expecting any trouble. But if any arises, put it on this group chat or whatever. Because there's a man and his wife, and they have lives. They got schedules. I'm out in the truck. Dennis has a job and he's doing his thing. My wife works evenings. So like, I'm talking to my wife and I'm like, well, you know, what happens if the plumbing breaks? You know what I mean? And just figuring out the communications and stuff like that or whatever. And then now I'm just doing like these emergency drills. Like I wanted to do emergency drills this weekend. I don't have a calendar. I don't have any clue that it's the Feast of the Shofar thingy. I don't know what that is, because like, dude, we didn't even do like Thanksgiving was the only thing that we did. Like, when I turned 8 years old, I found out like 3 weeks later because somebody asked me how old I was. I was like, and then I went and told my mom. I was like, hey, my birthday was like 2 weeks ago. She's like, oh, well, happy birthday. And I'm all butthurt, and I'm like, well, you didn't remember. You know what she said? Well, you didn't remember either. Because that's like, I mean, that's Oklahoma, man. Like, it's not a thing. You know what I mean? So you know, when you're in a truck driving family, every time dad is home, it's time to celebrate. You know what I mean? As long as you're not in trouble, you can definitely experience as two different sides of dad, which is very good. I read the Old Testament and I read the New Testament, and I don't see any difference in the person of God. And let me tell you why. Because my dad would be gone and he would show up, and I had done everything I was supposed to do. And it was like a holiday. And I wouldn't see him for a while, he'd show up. And I had felony charges and burnt the neighbor's house down. I'd be like, what? You know, we got some leather treatments and, 9 months of hard labor coming. I never burnt the neighbor's house. I'm just saying, I had made major mistakes. But when Dad showed up, it was a very different experience than when things were going good. But he's the same guy. So when I'm seeing the Old Testament and the New Testament, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not, I don't see, raging, vindictive dad of Old Testament that's like, ooh, gonna get you. And then this lovey-dovey, feminine male freaking pushover Jesus. No, Jesus is tough as hell. He's tough as nails. You know what I mean? He's tougher than hell. Listen to me. This is not cussing. Jesus is tougher than hell. Jesus is tougher than hell. The laws and all this stuff we're supposed to do, and if you get it wrong, you die, that's still real. That you should be afraid of that. You should be a man coming home and shit has hit the fan and the kids are in trouble, and you should be applying leather treatments and harsh labor appropriate to the situation. You know what I prayed? Because I don't get to see my kids, right? Because I'm out here in truck and everything. I did, when I was locked up, I'm just praying. I'm like, God, I don't even think I had kids at the time. Maybe I did. Can't remember. Anyway, the prayer was, don't let my kids get away with nothing. Catch them at every step of the way. Whatever they do wrong, just don't let them be encouraged to get to the big boy level of, crime. I mean, every time they do something wrong, please, Lord, catch them. You know what I mean? And a loving father chastises his kids because, that's what it takes for them to be able to raise their own kids. You want to set them up for success. And that's real good. So, I'm shutting up now. Rock Hill. Go get them.